This is DJ Bullseyemarksman Gun Club in Cumming, Georgia. This is our pistol optic workshop. I'm certified by Centrifuge as an LE Mill style of pistol optic instructor, but I use the knowledge to train armed citizens and competition shooters. There are open and closed emitter designs. The closed emitter is a sealed system. It's great for open carry, law enforcement, where the gun is always exposed to the elements. Water can't get into the optic, but the open emitter system is usually under your clothing, concealed, and it's while it's still waterproof, it is somewhat vulnerable to getting dirt and debris or water between the laser and the lens. But both are great solutions. You just have to weigh the pros and cons, see which is best for you. Now these mount onto your slide using either adapter plates or they directly mount to the pattern of the slide cut on your gun. The adapter plates offer more flexibility but less reliability, sometimes the need to even upgrade the plate to get the robust reliability needed. I like the direct mount because you have that stone cold reliability and it sits lower on the slide where I can utilize and see the factory iron sights without the need to upgrade. On the left here we have an optic with a plate, so this owner has had to upgrade the iron sights. That's an additional expense. But in any case, this is what I like to see. The iron sights are down below, out of the way when I don't need them, but they're easy to see if I do. But this is a redundant system. I'm not losing anything. I'm gaining two systems to sight the gun with. On the right, some manufacturers, the pistol optic is more of an afterthought. In this case, they have the optic high up on the slide to the rear and no iron sights. I'm not a big fan of this configuration. Some of the older optics, such as the Trijicon RMR, which is still a good unit even today, you have to remove the optic to replace the battery, reinstall, re-zero. This is a huge hassle. I would prefer the newer solutions with the battery replaceable on the top or side. Two batteries that are most common. The 1632 is smaller, dime size. It'll fit in the thinner, smaller optics for subcompact carry guns. It has a shorter battery life. The 2032 is the better battery always. It has that longer battery life, but in either case, just having an on-off automatic feature on the optic will prevent you from having to turn the optic on and off, and it may last for years. Holosun has come up with a solar rechargeable lithium battery with a 10-year warranty. Just install and forget about it. This will also recharge indoors or outdoors. As far as the color or the type of dot reticle, most of the newer optics will let you choose between the dot only, circle only, or the dot and the circle. The circle certainly makes it easier to acquire and not lose the reticle in the glass, but it's also very busy and cluttered to the eye. The dot I prefer. Now there are pros and cons here. The green dot will allow colorblind shooters to see a dot, and it's very pleasant outdoors and in the daytime and against red clay or berms at the gun club. But the negative I find about green is that in low light conditions, when I turn on the flashlight or the weapon mounted light, the green washes out or disappears. So I overall prefer the red, and I do believe that if you train with red or green, your brain becomes used to reacting to the color. And sometimes training with one or the other is certainly a performance advantage. Now, if you look at your dot and it is bursty or has shards of light or spokes coming out around it, this could be your eye or the optic. The optic could be turned up too bright. It could be just a cheap laser. It could be that that particular brand of laser triggers your eye problems more than others. But if you want to determine whether it's the optic or your eye, just rotate the gun and the optic, and if those spokes or shards rotate with the gun, it's the gun. If they stay the same, it's your eye. Now, one thing that may help with this is adjust the brightness to the proper levels, clean the glass, but also clean that lens on the emitter, the laser at the back, and use swabs. Be careful not to grind dirt and abrasive materials into your glass causing scratches, and use these products that help you polish, protect the lens, and even prevent fogging. Now, when we use our iron sights, which we still want to have these sights on the gun, we're not losing anything. They're still there. We want to train with them, but it is more complicated, and I would argue not as natural to the way our body works, because we're having to visually locate and align the front and rear sights and overlay them on the target, even refine how perfect that sight picture is depending on the size and the distance of the target and the type of hit that we need. This takes work and time, and I would argue that the pistol optic is far more natural. As far as the length or size of your gun, if you have a longer sight radius, it gives you more precision. So there's an advantage in a longer sight radius with handgun and iron sights. But remember, if you have a small carry gun and you install a pistol optic, it virtually erases this disadvantage. There's also a myth out there that when you install a pistol optic, it creates some new mechanical offset or sight over bore gap. That's not true. It just matches the iron sight. So whether you have standard iron sights or suppressor height iron sights, the optic just matches those. There's no difference. And when we zero our optic, I would argue the best policy is just zero the same as the iron sights are calibrated from the factory, which is typically 25 yards. So the point of aim and point of impact, they match at 25 yards. Now, if you shoot closer, especially up in a couple of yards from the target, you are going to realize that gap between where you're aimed and the bullet is going to impact slightly below that. Now, this doesn't make much difference in most cases. And I would even argue that zeroing at 5 yards for a half-inch offset is a very easy way to do it and use a lot less ammo to get to that 25-yard zero. Always confirm it that your grouping centered at 25 yards, but shooting with a gap at 5 yards is a great way to test that. Now, if you make the mistake of zeroing your optic up close, then your rounds may fly over the top of the target at a distance. When adjusting your optic, you'll sometimes notice that you're clicking and clicking and clicking and it's not making a difference, and you end up going back and forth thinking you're going the wrong way. It gets very confusing, wasting ammo and time. So remember, when you're adjusting the windage and elevation, it's 20 clicks to move the impact an inch at 5 yards and 4 clicks to move it an inch at 25. And I would just comment that some of the manufacturers are far more wise in the tool required. This Trijicon uses the rim on a brass. It's a curved slot. While you can use a screwdriver, you can just pick up a brass off the range, because when you need that special little tool they provided with your optic, it never seems to be around. Now, let's make another argument here that the pistol optic is actually more natural to the way our body works. Throughout time, we are target focused as human beings. Our eyes are hard focused on the threat or the target, whether it's the human fist, tools, weapons. In fact, I would say when you drive a nail, do you look at the head of the nail or do you look at the hammer? And when we're coaching you with shooting the optic, hopefully you haven't developed a lot of bad habits. We're going to keep your face vertical and flat to the target, both eyes open, and we're going to hard focus not on the target or a zone, but on the specific spot on the target we want those rounds to impact. And when the dot arrives there, we press the trigger. It's as simple as that. We develop this hand-eye coordination of bringing the dot wherever the eyes are waiting. Now, one of the things that we don't want you to do is look through the optic with one eye like a rifle scope or focus on the dot itself. We want to be target focused, and we won't be trying to center the dot in the glass or lollipop the dot on the top of the iron sight. These are common mistakes that are very hard habits to break. Now, in this case, I'm shooting a 3-inch wide steel at 20 yards distance. And you'll see that not only am I hitting the 3-inch steel, but I'm burning a black spot in the center of it. Very precise, very accurate, but you'll notice with every shot, the dot is in a different place in the glass. And that's because this is parallax free. When we install the optic, I find that people tend to unintentionally raise the gun and stop at the top of the optic instead of the top of the slide. This is a new habit you develop What I would recommend is draw to the top of the slide where the iron sights are. You may not be using the iron sights, but you're still drawing, presenting the gun up to the top of the slide, same as always. And you will see the red dot every single time. Now, if you're having problems with this, turn the optic off, dry fire 20, 30 times to the top of the slide iron sights, then turn the optic back on and see if that helps with the problem. As we present the gun out beneath the dominant eye, we're not looking down at the gun. We're looking at the target where we can see the gun in our lower peripheral vision as it rises and presses out away from our body. In number one, we see the top of the gun, front and rear sights. At this point, we're more or less steering or aligning the gun with the target. And number two, we start to see the front sight and through the glass, but we're not yet shooting because the front sight is not buried in the rear sights. But at number three, even before the iron sights are aligned, we're already seeing the red dot and we're seeing it on target. We can shoot. This is very quick, very precise, and this is why a pistol optic is so quick. Now, we can wait to number four where the iron sights are aligned and the dot will lollipop the front sight, but this is wasting time. It's not necessary. There are some advantages to the angles of your arms, wrist, and the gun and recoil management and tracking the dot in the glass at number four, but it's not necessary. Now, if we look at this on a timeline, when we have the optic turned off or we don't have an optic, we have to wait in time until the iron sights are sufficiently aligned to get the shot we need and then bang. But with the optic on, we still have the iron sights if we need them there as backup, but the red dot interrupts that flow at a much quicker point, so we're shooting more accurately quicker with the pistol optic. In this case, I'm just shooting a 55-yard small steel with my short carry gun. Remember the sight radius being eliminated. I'm drawing from the holster. I'm not even in a hurry. In about 2.5 seconds, I'm hitting that plate from the holster at 55 yards. So this greatly extends my distance that I can engage targets. But even at a closer distance, it allows me to shoot much more precisely. Now, when we're target focused, everything that's up close, the front sights, the optic, the smears on the glass, how fuzzy or clear the dot is, the gun, the slide, all of that vanishes as long as we're target focused. And this is just the way our eyes work. And so I would say remain target focused to get rid of all of those visual distractions up close. And when I shoot, my left eye sees around the side of the gun. It sees the target head to toe, top to bottom. It sees everything unobstructed. My right eye, even with blue painter's tape on the front of the optic, it sees that dot, and my brain will take the information from the left and right half and merge the useful information together in what I see on the right. So if you're target focused, that blue tape blocking the optic on the front will begin to look invisible. And you can take your hand and cover one eye and target focus. You'll start to see the palm of your hand become invisible. The blue tape just forces us to do it right. It will not allow us to do it wrong. We can also include targets with random numbers or letters, and when we visually focus on the center of the number and read it out loud, 1, my eyes are on 2, 2, my eyes are on 3, read it out loud, 3, the dot will arrive where our eyes are waiting and we can press the trigger and take a shot, or in dry fire, we just press a dead trigger. But what we're doing is we're leading our eyes to the center of number 1 and reading it out loud. 1, the dot arrives and we press the trigger. Our eyes lead to the number 2 while we're still pressed on the trigger on number 1. Our eyes lead to 2. When they arrive at 2, we read 2 out loud, 2. Then the dot arrives and we press the trigger. We lead our eyes to number 3, 3. The dot arrives, we press the trigger. Eyes lead to number 4, 4. We press the trigger. 5, press the trigger. 6, press the trigger. 6, press. 5, press. 4, press. 3, press. 2, press. 1. So we're engaged mentally with the sequence. We're reading it out loud. We're focused in reading the number. This, along with the blue tape, is several layers of training that force us to not only learn to use the optic correctly, but it greatly improves our shooting performance. So before we get out on the range and work on these skills, I want you to watch Ben Stoker, one of the best shooters instructors in the world, talking about how he reacts to the color or the clear dot on the target and how he utilizes that to shoot at various shooting speeds. This is fascinating stuff.
All right, so I'm going to make a demo, all 4 of the conformations that we just did. All right, and what I'll just do is 6-shot strings. All right, so body index, like if the gun feels the line, so I'll shoot. Low accountability, right? Not super repeatable, but kind of okay on the range to use it as a training tool. Color confirmation, which way more accountability. Then it'll be dot press, like sight looks like a sight. And then it'll be conscious, deliberate trigger press. All right, that was some time, just body index. All right. How much slower was that? That was color confirmation, and I knew they were all in the A zone, stacked right where I wanted. It's only 1/10 of a second slower. Okay? Now, dot press, staring at that black spot. That adds a lot of time, but now I'm putting them into a really small group. Now we'll go conscious, deliberate trigger press. All right, super high accountability, paster level accuracy, adds a ton more time for me when I'm shooting like that. I would do that if I had to. Does this make sense to everybody?